Good evening, everyone. I'm going to call the meeting to order. So, welcome to this planning meeting of April 16th, 2025. My name is Kate McNaughton, and I am one of the Picton ward councillors here in beautiful Prince Edward County. We're currently meeting at council chambers in Shire Hall, and we've got a full house tonight, so welcome to everyone here. Members of the public who wish to speak at our meeting or any other meetings are invited to register with the clerk's office in advance. These meetings are public meetings as required under the Planning Act, and they deal with planning applications listed on the agenda. Tonight's agenda lists all the items before the committee for consideration, and copies of that agenda have been posted on our website. Tonight's meeting is being live streamed, and any participation in the meeting proceedings will become part of the public record. The recording from the meeting will be published on the county's website immediately and can be viewed by selecting the live stream tab on the bottom right of the county's homepage at thecounty.ca. Personal information collected as a result of this public meeting is collected under the authority of the Planning Act and will be used to assist in making decisions in these matters. Make sure to provide your name for recording in the minutes and to sign in using the sheet located over by the media desk. All speakers' names, opinions, and comments may be collected and will be in the minutes, which will be available to the public. The first portion of tonight's meeting under Section 5 is a statutory public meeting pursuant to the Planning Act. It is to present planning applications in a public forum so that the proponent and the public have an opportunity to be heard in front of the decision-making committee prior to an application being reviewed by staff. The agenda includes an overview of the planning application before the municipality, but there's no staff report at this stage, and no decisions will be made this evening. Each application will be discussed individually, first with a presentation by the applicant, owner, or agent, and then the meeting will be open to the public for comment and questions. If there are no questions or concerns from anyone present, I'll conclude the statutory public meeting for this item. The second portion of tonight's meeting is items for consideration, and that's Section 7 on your agenda. It is to consider applications that have held a statutory public meeting already, and the committee will be asked to make decisions. These items include reports attached to the agenda, which will contain a staff recommendation, typically to approve with conditions or to deny a planning application. After the planners, applicants, owners, or agents' presentation, committee members will be able to ask questions of staff, the applicant, owner, or agent, and following that question and answer period, I'm going to be calling for a motion to approve the recommendation. The Planning and Development Committee will make a recommendation to approve, amend, or deny a planning application. Council has the final say on the applications. All bylaws on this agenda will be approved at the next feasible council meeting. Following council's decision, notice will be circulated in accordance with the Planning Act, and if a person or a public body would otherwise have an ability to appeal the decision of council to the Ontario Land Tribunal, but the person or public body does not make an oral submission at one of our public meetings or make a written submission to the municipality before the bylaw is passed, that person or public body is not entitled to make an appeal for the decision. Moving right along, is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest? Okay, can I get a mover and a seconder to confirm the agenda? Thank you. Councillor Engelsdorfer and Councillor Prinzen.
It's an Engelsdorfer-Prinzen motion that the agenda for the Planning and Development Committee meeting of April 16, 2025 be confirmed.
Thank you. All in, any questions or comments? All in favor? That carries. So we don't have any presentations, but we've got a public meetings. So this is the statutory public meetings section of the agenda, in which we consider matters where it's required by the Planning Act. The purpose of the statutory meeting is to allow the committee to gather the information on the applications before us at this stage, to hear those wishing to make submissions on the applications, and to allow the committee to ask questions of the applicants and of public and staff. Every member of the public speaking today is required to state their name for the public record, which will form part of the meeting minutes. In the interest of time, the committee respectfully asks that you keep your comments to no more than 5 minutes each. And we're going to start with item 5.1, draft plan of condominium and rezoning file for Blocknote Canada in regards to Redtail Winery. So first, does the planner, agent, owner, or applicant wish to speak or provide a presentation with respect to their application?
Good morning, good evening, Madam Chair. Can you hear me?
There you are. It says virtual right here. Adam Layton,
Excellent.
Is that you?
Yes, thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you very much.
So you have 10 minutes.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Hopefully I will not need that. So I'll just share my screen. I did have a presentation that hopefully was circulated to members of committee prior to the meeting, but I will pull that up on the screen now. As for the record, my name is Adam Layton. I am the Associate Principal with Goldberg Group. We are the agent on behalf of Redtail Winery, and we are here tonight to discuss a draft plan of condominium. And it does say a rezoning, but in actuality, we are seeking to lift the hold conditions applicable to the property. So the subject site, as you may recall, is located south of Consicon along Loyalist Parkway before it bends at Partridge Hollow Road. We've highlighted it in red on the subject site. It was previously subject to an official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment to permit the redevelopment of the lands with an estate winery, a hotel, and a Nordic spa. Since that time, we've taken some next steps to advance the site plan control application. Shown here is just a drone photograph of the subject site. In the foreground and the bottom left corner of the screen, you'll see the back of house buildings or the existing winery operation on the property, and to the middle and top of the page is the general location of the Nordic Spa and the estate winery and hotel that will hopefully be constructed in the near future. In terms of timeline, I've just put up to remind the committee the history of the file going back to 2019 when the initial applications for official plan and zoning bylaw amendments were filed, with public information meeting in 2019. That was before my engagement on the file with my prior firm. Following that, I was engaged in 2022 when we resubmitted a new concept for the hotel, being more of the villa style that you may recall. We did have a second public information meeting in June, followed by a approval of official plan amendment number 80 and the zoning bylaw in December 2022. Following that, one of the key issues identified was finding an appropriate and sufficiently productive well on site to provide water for the contemplated uses, and that is the genesis of the hold provisions. So we did take about a year to do that necessary study, and throughout 2023, which did result in finding several very good wells on the property, allowing us to make an application to the ministry in 2024, which resulted in the issuance of a permit to take water in July. With that in hand, we were able to advance the site plan application, including preparing lighting plans, landscape plans, and detailed architectural plans, which were submitted in December 2024. And we are here for a community or public information meeting for the plan of condominium that we've submitted, and I will go through the details of that in later slides of this presentation, as well as to seek the removal of the hold provision, which the remaining condition required to lift that would be the execution of a site plan agreement, which hopefully will happen after we make our resubmission to address technical comments. In terms of a site plan, I've shown the existing condition of the property, which you'll note roughly in the middle of the site, north being to the left side of the page, is the existing winery production facility and back of house operations with several existing vineyards planted on the property. and the
Adam, I'm
water course.
sorry to interrupt just for a moment. I think we're having a little bit of trouble hearing you in the house. If you could speak as loudly as possible without
Certainly.
without yelling at us, that would be amazing. Thanks.
Certainly. Is this better?
Yeah, maybe a little.
Keep
going.
Louder? Okay, a little louder. Okay. You'll see the water course bisecting the property, as well as the delineated environmental features that were identified through the prior submissions. That formed the basis of the site plan, which hasn't changed in a large degree, aside from some additional details from the last time you would have seen it at the end of 2022. We are still contemplating one main driveway coming off of the existing access from Loyalist Parkway, past the site, past the existing production facility, turning to go north, leading to the estate winery building roughly in the middle of the site, the Nordic Spa located to the east of the site in the woodlots, and then leading to 2 surface parking areas and a distribution of 38 villa buildings containing about 134 hotel units and some outdoor amenity spaces and recreation area. Zooming in on the actual operative part of the site, which is located to the north of the watercourse, this is just a colored version of the site plan, might be a little more legible for you, and you'll see the basically all the plantings and various uses that we're proposing, and I'll go through them in detail on the following slides. The estate winery building has been detailed to a more advanced level. This is a perspective rendering of the building, along with some of the precedent imagery that inspired the design, largely taking its cues from the existing vernacular architecture of the county, standing seam metal framing, barn board, punched windows, and the ability to open the inside to the outside has informed a lot of the design. The hotel villas, you might recall, were contemplated to be more low buildings that were modular in nature to allow for a variety of use cases and distributed across the property. This is a conceptual rendering, as well as some precedent imagery showing how we see them nestled in among the woodlands, the connection from the indoor to the outdoor, and how they could be grouped. And this shows the types of units that are contemplated, and the variety and number of types of modules that are contemplated to be distributed across the property. As I indicated, there's 38 total buildings contemplated, resulting in about 134 units, and we feel that addresses a number of use cases from your larger parties or groups down to just your individuals or couples seeking a weekend retreat. Lastly, we have some inspiration for the amenity areas, and we wanted this to cover a wide range of use cases, including potentially swimming pools, outdoor amenity spaces, places just to relax in the sun, and more active uses like tennis courts and basketball courts. And then lastly, trying to tie it all together by providing a variety of innovative amenities and landscaping treatments to maintain the farm nature of the area, integrate the vineyard into the site, and integrate the potential for enhanced pollinator plantings and other wildflowers to hide necessary site infrastructure such as the septic field. And then finally, the inspiration for the Nordic Spa. I will say at the present time, the site plan for the spa is still a placeholder. We are still seeking an operator for that, but the general layout of the buildings has been shown in a conceptual level, and if need be at the future, we would come in with a subsequent site plan amendment for that building if it changes. In terms of the draft plan of condominium, I guess I'll stop at this point just to clarify for those people. I do understand there might be some concern seeing the word condominium, but from a planning perspective, a condominium just denotes a tenure rather than a use. Most people, I would imagine, their minds go to some sort of a high-density apartment building or townhouses. That's not the case in this instance. We're simply implementing a draft plan of condominium as more of a legal convenience. The various businesses or business operations on the site, the vineyard and winery, the hotel, the spa, they all would be owned and operated by different companies. So the formation of a condo corp allows the actual lands that they're occupying and operating out of to be unitized while also maintaining the balance of the property and the common elements in a common ownership and with common maintenance. So in terms of the breakdown of the draft plan of condominium, and in this case, it's what's called a vacant land condominium, The units and the extent of the units are shown in the various colors. The blue area being the hotel unit, the green area being the Nordic Spa, the red area being the winery, and the orange area being the estate building, and then everything else would be a common elements, which includes the entry features and signage, lighting, driveways, any landscaping, any shared utilities, stormwater management pond, septic field, and the like. And then there would be, as is required by the Condominium Act of Ontario, the necessary bylaws, rules, regulations, and maintenance of these features to ensure that they are maintained to a high level of quality. That concludes my presentation. I don't think I've used up my 10 minutes, so I'm happy to answer any other questions, and certainly would appreciate the opportunity, if there are any questions from the public, to respond. Thank you.
Thank you. Does the committee have questions for the agent? Yes, Councillor Pennell.
Thank you. I have several questions. How many wells is it going to take to supply all these different things?
Through Madam Chair to the councillor, we've identified one well which actually satisfies all the requirements for the water on the site.
What does it produce?
It produced, based on a 30-day test, about 64,000 liters per day. And then we also have 2 backup wells, and all of this is categorized in the permit to take water, which we've provided a copy to county staff along with our submission.
The other question is, I noticed all the pictures. It looks beautiful with all the flowers and everything out front. But that particular area is one of the highest locations for deer in the county. And I'm a little concerned, if flowers are nice, but if you have grass that's cut short, nothing to attract the deer. But the way that appears to, I've got a real concern that you're going to end up with a lot of deer, not only eating there, but crossing the road as well. And the last question is, if all these different buildings are going to be basically the building run by somebody else, but should they not come forward on a per basis? I do one thing now, you get your building permits and that's it. You do something else, and in the meantime you're able to adjust where the water that it's going to keep the same in that. And you have a time factor where you're planning on building, or when you would be starting the buildings, because you were saying that basically you're looking for people to run them. So
go ahead, Adam.
Through the chair, Councillor, I'll answer the last question first. Okay. The hotel operator and the winery are both existing and advancing this application. The only operator we don't necessarily have at present, to my understanding, is just for the spa. So the intent is to get the hotel and the winery up and running right away. And in fact, Redtail Winery has already started producing. I believe they've got about 30 acres of active vineyard at present. So it's really just that Nordic spa, and I would suggest that once the hotel is up and running, the spa will naturally resolve itself in very short order. In terms of the actual layout of the site and everything, that would be governed by the site plan agreement that we would ultimately enter into with the county. Any changes to the built form or the layout of the site would require an amendment to facilitate if it differs from the plans that are approved. And then with respect to the deer, I would, if you might recall from the consideration of the OPA and ZBA, we have identified the limits of the woodlands and the limits of the watercourse. We are not touching them at all. In fact, we're applying, I believe it's a 10-meter buffer from the woodland and a 15-meter buffer from the watercourse, and revegetating those areas as well. So I very much hope, in fact, that there will be continued wildlife and deer crossing through the property. That's, I think, also played a role in how we decided, or how the proponent decided to switch from a more typical 4-story hotel building to more of a distributed villa character, because I think it would allow that interaction with nature and visitors to occur, and we certainly want to promote that.
Thank you. Just a quick follow-up on that?
Well, we're going to move on, but
Oh,
we'll come
okay.
back
Go
around
ahead.
to you because Councillor Brainey's been waiting for some time. Councillor Brainey.
Thank you, Adam, for your presentation. It, by all accounts, looks like an incredible opportunity for agritourism for Hillier and Prince Edward County. I'd just like to thank yourself and Redtail. I've had really good feedback from neighbors around there about communication, and I do appreciate that. I think the question I wanted to ask is just, I think Councillor Pennell sort of hit on a little bit. The previous council approved a good amount of Redtail under the guidelines that they met the water requirements, and I believe that there's no doubt that the water requirements have been met. Correct, Adam?
That certainly we believe so. The two conditions, in fact, for both phases of development, we have 2 hold provisions as it was anticipated. We weren't sure how much water we'd be able to find, so we split the hold into 2 phases. But in fact, the findings through our subsequent study seems to have provided wells sufficient to provide for the entire development. So again, we have obtained that permit to take water, which is half of the conditions that need to be satisfied for the hold removal. The other half, of course, is entering into the site plan agreement, which we're in the process of satisfying.
Thank you, Adam.
Thanks.
Councillor Grosso.
There we go. Thank you, Adam. Can you just tell us what really defines the term Nordic spa? When I think about Nordic, I think about a cold country. But I guess the second part of that is, will this spa be running 12 months a year?
In fact, it's funny you asked that through the chair. It's funny you asked that, Councillor. We had to include a definition of spa in our site-specific zoning. To me, the term Nordic simply denotes that there's a mix of indoor and outdoor water features associated with it. I believe it's the intent that it would function year-round, but obviously that might depend on the business operations of the ultimate operator. But we've certainly designed it to operate year-round.
Okay, thank you.
No follow-up? You're good? Okay. Any further questions or comments from committee for the applicant or for the agent? Okay. Well, that was pretty easy for you, Adam. Is there anyone in the room who wishes to speak to the item? We do actually, I believe, have 2 virtual commenters. Should we start with them, Becky? Do we have Christopher Musso? Yeah, joined? Okay. Hi, Christopher, can you hear me okay? If you're still connecting to audio, I can't even see, but just give me a thumbs up if you can hear. And please make sure that YouTube is off if you've been following along on YouTube. Okay, thank you. Can you, it's your turn to speak. You have 5 minutes if you want to unmute and state your name and take your 5 minutes.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
If you could speak a little bit louder, it would be great. You're quite coming across a little quiet. Sorry.
Okay, sorry
I think it might be us, not you.
Okay, I can hear you well. My name is Chris Musso. I live in, I was just outside of Consacon, and I had a question about the Redtail application, about the traffic study specifically, if I could ask that.
A question regarding the application for the traffic study specifically?
It's about the traffic study that's part of the application.
Yes? What's your question?
So the traffic study on page 24 says that it is noted that right-turning vehicles do not need to yield to pedestrians or cyclists as there are no...
Sorry, can you repeat that just a little bit louder?
Yeah, let me just see if I can make my end louder. I don't think I can.
Through the chair, Chris, can you just take the mic and angle it towards your mouth a bit? It was, yeah, try that.
Okay, hold on.
Test 1, 2.
Test 1, 2, is that better?
A little.
Is that better? There we go. Okay, so on page 24 of the traffic study, it says that right-turning vehicles do not need to yield to pedestrians or cyclists as there are no facilities along Loyalist Parkway for pedestrians or cyclists. And I'm just wondering if that's really accurate. I'm a bit concerned because your traffic count itself said that there was anywhere from 3 to 28 bikes passing along that stretch per day. And there are paved shoulders, which is what typically the bicycles do travel on, and pedestrians, there's the odd pedestrian also. So I'm just wondering what that means exactly, that you don't have to worry about bikes.
That's an excellent question, because generally it's a good rule to not run over cyclists. Is that something that we can refer to staff, or is that, can we do that in this new format? To actually ask, or shall we just, we can save that question and have, when we get to the committee questions part, we can have staff answer any questions from the commenters. How does that sound?
So through to the chair, I believe staff will take notes and analyze it, but there is a section that if the applicant wishes to respond, you're going to ask it after public comments.
Okay. So we're going to note that and carry it forward later in the meeting. That's an excellent question. And our staff have it written down, and we can have a chance to follow up on that. Was there anything further that you wanted to present to the committee? Okay.
So through to the chair, Chris, we're just going to remove you, put you back in the holding room. If you follow along on YouTube, Councillor McNaughton's going to ask the applicant if they wish to respond. If not, staff will address it.
Can I do that right now? Because it just makes sense if we, okay. It's a lot easier and cleaner. So if we can switch, if we can refer that to Adam, Adam, would you like to comment on that directly?
Through you, Madam Chair, yes, I've pulled up the traffic study, and I do see the comment there. I will question our traffic engineer on that point, but I agree with you wholeheartedly. It's certainly not I would not imagine it's intended to suggest that people can do whatever they want with no concern for pedestrians or cyclists. I would note that the comment itself is within a section discussing the geometry and design of a right turn taper into the site that is being contemplated to ensure that there's no impact of traffic turning into the site on traffic on Loyalist Parkway. So I think it was more meant to suggest that there's no, signalized crosswalks or things like that, which needed to be considered. But I can certainly get our traffic engineer to comment, and I'd be happy to send a written response through staff to Mr. Musso.
That would be great, thanks. My concern is that the shoulder suddenly disappears where that right turn lane appears, right? And
Understood.
I mean, there's going to be people staying at the resort. They're going to have bikes. They're going to want to ride to North Beach or to the Millennium Trail, as well as the people that use it right now. So we want to keep as many avenues of transportation open as possible, safe ones.
I 100% agree, and I would note that we did provide through staff as well a functional design for how the access would be improved through these turn lanes. So it is again subject to full detailed design comment from staff, and certainly safety would be a primary concern.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much.
Thank you for your excellent comment. Pedestrian safety is, I think, an important part of any changes to roadways. We next, do any of the committee members wish to engage with the commenter? Okay. Thank you very much for joining us and bringing that concern forward, Christopher. Next, we will go to John Hicks, if he's in the waiting room. Or are you here? You're in person. It says so in my notes too. I just saw it too late. Hi and welcome, John.
Okay, thank you.
You've got 5 minutes to speak,
All
and
right.
make sure you state your name clearly.
Don?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks for the opportunity to speak to council. And Adam, I have a few questions, 3 items in particular. Let's get right into, maybe one item that comes up. The documentation that was received at my location, which is within the 500-meter radius, and my neighbors was not the same documentation that's on your electronic site. So it didn't have anything about the tennis courts, or it must have been an old plan. So that's, I found very unfortunate. I was hoping that things would be up to date, so my neighbors would know what's going on. The first item, though, is let's go back to the hydrologic study, because I know that a lot of people in my area were concerned about it. And specifically, there wasn't any documentation on how the number 64,000 liters per day came about. Is there any breakdown? I know that it's supposed to be for the new facility, the spa, the winery, etc., but there was no breakdown of what was what in your documentation.
Through you, Madam Chair, I'm not aware of a specific breakdown. I believe this is simply based on what was contemplated to be a maximum usage per day,
Right.
and that was what was tested and submitted for the permit to take water. I can certainly check with our hydrogeologist and see what if any breakdown is available. But again, the testing and the assessment and the ultimate permit is based on a worst case scenario typically with a safety factor.
Right. I thought it might be a little bit difficult to gauge on the Nordic spa stuff. I don't know how often the water has to be exchanged in these types of facilities, and I imagine there would be a glutton for water, those type of things. So that's why I was interested. If that was some breakdown, it would give us a bit of reassurance that the documentation on 64,000 is correct.
Is that based on the calculations of anticipated usage?
Well, the 64,000 is actually the limit that the permit to take water would allow from all sources. Again, I don't have the details on me as to how that was calculated to be the maximum usage, but I can certainly circle back through staff to get that.
That'd be great. Thanks very much. The second item on the ecological study. The ecological study dealt with birds, appropriately, amphibians. It didn't deal with mammals, and I appreciate the councillor's comment on deer. We have, a lot of animals, like a lot of people in Prince Edward County. They have deer and coyotes, maybe fox, things that run through. And I thought a current concept in ecological design was to allow, not migration, but roaming of animals between properties. It's an ecological concept because different species relate to other species, hunters, gather, this type of thing, even plants, seeds, etc. So I wonder if that could be a little bit addressed a little bit better. Just to be specific, your property, or the property that you're talking about, has about a 1.5 kilometer border with Highway 33 there. And right now there's no fencing, or there's just a little bit of fencing. There's a free flow of, coyotes, deer across the highway into the area. But if it was fenced, it would be really a barrier for these animals. And, I know you talked about the boundaries around the water, the buffer zones, but I wonder if there's something that could be addressed specifically related to the deer and coyotes, etc.
I will I've just pulled up the landscape plans that are on a screen, so I'm not just looking off into space. There is no fencing across Loyalist Parkway currently shown, aside from around specific areas that one might expect, such as the tennis court or the pool. So, and again, we're not by and large touching the wooded area or the water course. So again, my understanding, and again, this has all been vetted through Quinte Conservation as well as county staff, is that if the free flow would be allowed to continue, and certainly we want to encourage it.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, you've heard my comment then. Third one is on lighting, and well, let me start with a little bit of background on this. Adam, have you ever heard the term Bortle before? A Bortle scale?
Unfortunately, I have not.
Okay. It's not a trick question. I'm not trying to trap you or anything, but it's an interesting concept of background light that exists. And for astronomers, they like to be in a dark zone. And the Bortle scale goes from 1 to 10. If you're in Toronto, you're in a 10. If you're in a small town like Trent, you might be in a 5. And what we have here in Prince Edward County is a Bortle of 3, which is really lovely. It's fantastic to see stars at night here. If I wanted to get to a 2, I'd have to go into the middle of Algonquin Park. And if I wanted to get to a 1, I'd have to go farther north than that. So a 3 is fantastic for stargazers here. And we have a neighborhood where we always try to turn out most of our lights at night. So we'll come back to this Bortle idea in a moment.
Just to give you a warning, you've run out of time, but I'll give you a little bit of latitude to finish your question on preserving the night sky.
Sure. So the tennis court has 24 lights, 375 watts each, and it just sounds tremendously bright. And that's at an area that's close to the road, about as close as the road you can get for your facility.
So you may have a moment just to respond to that, whether that will be dealt with the night sky in consideration.
I can advise through you, Madam Chair, that the lighting plans do confirm there are notes that would form part of the package and would be subject to the site plan agreement, confirming that all exterior lighting will be controlled by a photocell with override switch, and that all lighting would be dark sky compliant, subject to county standards. So in that regard, I hear the concern. I'm not sure if it's intended that the tennis courts operate all day or all night. I can certainly understand the concern. And I will try and get clarification on that. But aside from that, I can confirm that dark sky lighting and photocells would be used to ensure that there's no.
Yeah, just getting the numbers right from your document. I think
I'm sorry, I'm just gonna.
Well, I haven't heard anybody else speak back now. Let me just add one more thing, Adam.
No, you know what? I'm sorry. You've had a little bit of extra time already, but thank you very much. And those are very good points to bring forward. We will, and there might be further comment later on. So just before you go, though, committee members, do you have questions for the speaker? Anyone? No, thank you very much. And thank you for bringing those thoughts forward. The agent, you've had, I think, sufficient opportunity to reply. Is there any further commenter who would like to speak to this item in the House tonight? Seeing none, we will move on to the committee. Does anyone have further questions? Councillor Grosso?
I guess my question, Adam, would this spa be open to having locals having day visits to it?
I believe that is certainly the intent. It's public access, to my knowledge. Again, we don't have an operator, but I do part of the parking supply. The reason, if you'll recall the site plan I had pulled up, there is day parking and overnight parking. So it's certainly intended that there may be visitors that are just visiting for the day.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions or comments at this time? No. Seeing none, can I get a mover and a seconder to put this on the floor? I'm going to look to the Hillier counselor who might want to put it on the floor. Can I get a seconder? Thank you very much. Counselor Grosso. Take it away, Counselor Brainy.
To receive the presentation of the draft plan of condominium and rezoning file number 13-T-24-506 and Z33-24, Blocknote Canada Inc., Redtail Winery, 19538 Loyalist Parkway, Ward 7, Hillier.
And to receive the oral submissions.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you very much. Anything further? I see no hands. All in favor? That carries. That statutory public meeting on this matter has now concluded at 6:42 p.m.
Thank you,
so
everyone.
can I
Have a good
get, thank you everyone for attending and speaking to this. Can I get a mover and a seconder to adjourn the statutory public meeting? Thank you, Councillor Branderhorst and Councillor Prinzen.
This is Branderhorst Prince's motion that the statutory public meeting held on April 16th, 2025 adjourn at 6:42 p.m.
All in favor? That carries. Thank you. So now we're going to move to the items for consideration.
Through to the chair. Comments from the audience.
Or, pardon me, comments from the audience.
And we have Dorothy Bothwell in person.
And I will just read the preamble first. Members of the public, just like the the statutory public meeting, members of the public who wish to provide comments under Section 6 are encouraged to email the clerks at clerks@pecounty.on.ca by noon on Wednesday, April 16th, or whenever the meeting is to register. This evening, we've got one registered comment. If anyone present would like to speak at this section on the agenda to an item listed under items for consideration, you will be welcome to do so. A reminder that if you do participate, your name, opinion, and comment will be included in the committee meeting minutes and will form part of the public record and be posted on the county's website. Additionally, in the interest of time, the committee asks that you keep your comments to no more than 3 minutes. So if you have previously provided comments during the statutory public meeting for this matter, please keep them as succinct and concise as possible and highlight new information for the committee's awareness. And we have Dorothy Bothwell. Welcome back to Council Chambers. Dorothy Bothwell, frequent flyer. So you've got 3 minutes. Take it away.
Thank you, Chair and members of Planning Committee, for this opportunity to provide comments. This is on the Base 31 Extension of Temporary Uses Bylaw and Interim Servicing. Before you approve the recommendations in this report, you may want to ask staff, how many other for-profit developers have been given over 3 years carte blanche to operate over 45 different businesses or uses with no limit on the number of special events of up to 5,000 people, tent and RV camping for all those folks, without proper zoning in place? This developer suggests that they didn't have time to file a zoning bylaw amendment to get approval for all these uses. 3 years wasn't enough time. With the county near to finalizing an updated comprehensive zoning bylaw, they will not be subject to it. Would holding a transparent public zoning bylaw amendment process pose a risk to the developer that they might lose the right to and enjoyment of some of these uses? The report notes estimated connection charges of $750,000 incurred to date. Why are we not taking the connection charges bylaw at face value, as it is written, and collecting these now? How can the county legally collect connection charges or development charges years after the fact? The 120-unit, 7-story rental apartment building within the revitalization district area, currently under site plan review, is proposed now to be on a private water and sewer system. How does this impact the potential connection charges or water wastewater development charges, which might be under a new DC bylaw, and the timeline for receiving them? Being a rental building, will it be exempt from water wastewater development charges? How will the ever-expanding tent and RV camping area be serviced with water and sewer? How long do we have to wait to collect development charges and connection charges for buildings and development already completed? It will be going on 4 years. When is it expected that the water wastewater allocation will be deemed permanent so we can get our money? The original interim servicing agreement should also be attached to this report so that you know what you are amending and committing to. It is not. I would respectfully ask committee to request answers to these questions from staff and to be fully informed of the legal and long-term implications before agreeing to amend the interim servicing agreement and temporary uses bylaw. I would also respectfully ask committee to consider extending the temporary uses and interim servicing bylaw for 6 months, at which time, if the MZO, the ministerial zoning order, has still not been approved, and that's going on 3 years, the temporary uses authority would expire and a zoning bylaw amendment would be required to be filed based on the new comprehensive zoning bylaw in effect. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Dorothy. Do any members of committee have questions for Dorothy at this time? Councillor Pennell? Oh, time's up.
Yeah, have you made this available to everyone involved?
Have
Your
you?
deputation?
Do you mean by email?
Do you mean
Yeah.
to the committee? I will send that when I get back. I'll send it.
I appreciate that everyone get a copy of that.
Okay, no problem.
Thank you.
Thank you, and we'll keep those questions on the list for when we bring this item forward. Are there any other people in the room who would like to make a comment on the files that we're going to be looking at this evening? No? Yes? Or just commenters, are you an applicant or an agent?
I am an agent. I'm just making sure that we're going to deal with the matter.
You'll get a chance, item by item, we'll be calling up the agents or applicants to say their piece. This is just comments from the audience. So thank you. We're going to see you very soon. Come on up, Scott. You will have 3 minutes too.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of council. I'd like to just come forward and offer comments in support of the uses at Base 31. In a relatively short period of time, it has become a place of community, one that is needed in many ways. Most people know it in relation to high-profile events, the concerts and such that are going on up there. But of particular note is the place of community for young people, children, the programs that they have centered around the sensory garden, the aviator garden, where there's day camps, programs that range from drama camps and clubs. These types of things are really becoming quite embedded in the youth of the county. And the overall aspect of the development really ties into Come Alive Outside, the themes that we've developed within the county quite strongly of getting creating a place for kids to get unplugged, reconnect with nature, which is continuing in the essence of its development of creating a great naturalized environment that's really enhancing the biodiversity and the overall site development through it along the terms that really is going to further along the sense of community and betterment to the environment as well.
Thank you. Would anyone like to ask our commenter a question? Nope, you're all good. Thanks very much. Is there anyone further who would like to make a comment on any of the files before us tonight? Seeing none, I will look to Councillor Prinzen to move the comments from the audience be received, listed under the items for consideration be received, and Councillor Branderhorst is seconding that.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's a Prince and Branderhorst motion. We received the Comments from the audience on tonight's agenda items?
Thank you. All in favor? Thank you. That carries. So now we're going to actually move on to those items. So item 7.1, which is the consent and rezoning file B125 and Z125, David McKibben, Ward 2, Hallowell. Does the planner wish to speak to the notice requirements for the application? Describe the proposal, summarize the correspondence, if any received to date, or provide a presentation?
Through the chair, I have nothing to add regarding this.
So straight to staff. There we go. So we don't have an applicant or agent in the room. Very good. Before we turn to committee members. Oh, we do. Oh, sorry, I didn't see you tucked in off to the side. Come on up.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
This is your chance. 5 minutes to speak.
Thank you. I won't take 5 minutes. My name is Brendan O'Connor. I'm a land use planning consultant. I'm the agent for the applicant, and I'm here just to say that we've reviewed the conditions of conditions of approval and are in agreement with them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, agreement, that makes life very easy. Before I ask committee members if they've got comments or questions, can I get a mover and a seconder to put the item on the floor? Thank you very much. Councillor Prinzin and Councillor Pennell. Oh, there was a battle.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's a Prinzin, Pennell, Nyman motion that the Planning and Development Committee receive report DS-20-2025 regarding consent file number B1-25 and Z1-25. 2, that the Planning and Development Committee approved consent file number B1-25 for the lands described as Lot 86, Registrar compiled Plan 27, Hallowell Ward 2, Bloomfield, Hallowell, subject to the following conditions that were agreed to, those being 1 through to 11, and 3, that the Planning and Development Committee approved zoning bylaw amendment file number Z1-25 for the lands described as Lot 86, Registrar's compiled Plan 27, Hallowell Ward 2, Bloomfield, Hallowell.
Thank you very much. So, committee members, does anyone have a question or a comment at this time? Okay. I'll call the vote. All in favor? That carries. So, moving right along, that was easy for you. So moving right along to Brown and Brown. So consent and rezoning file number B88-20 and Z76-20, and I believe we have a presentation. Is it Mark Pedersen? This is the time.
This presentation is, I believe, staff's presentation.
Through to the chair, it's usually staff that goes first,
Oh,
but
sure.
I'm okay with Mark going first if nobody else is
Sorry, I
opposed.
was interpreting it as planner, but planners are staff planners. Thank you. So we'll swing over to Emily and let you speak to the file.
Sure. Through the chair, my presentation is really in response to the presentation from the proponent that was circulated earlier today. I don't know if we want to deviate from the standard procedure and have Mr. Peterson go first, or I can go.
We can. If you're comfortable with that, sure. Is that okay with the clerks? You comfortable with that?
I'm comfortable.
Okay. Well, welcome back.
Thank you.
Third time's a charm.
That's right. So thank you, Madam Chair, members of council and committee for the opportunity to address you tonight. I am here on behalf of Doug Brown, the proponent of 2 consent applications. That's B8820 and B8920. Okay, thanks. The first thing I'm going to do is ask for an indulgence on time. You'd see from the second component of the numbers on these applications, they were applied for in 2020. So as it stands, I understand I have a minute for each year of processing on these files to date. I'm asking for 2. I would like 10 minutes. I think it would just give me an opportunity to give a more fulsome understanding of what my client's asking tonight.
If anyone would like to provide a motion to extend, we can accept it. Thank you, Councillor Branderhorst, seconded by Councillor Nyman. All in favor of extending a few more minutes? That carries. So you have a few more minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So what I'm here, just to contextualize things, what you see on the screen before you is one, the aerial photography of this site. The blue area is the subject lands. And then on the right is the survey sketch which accompanied this application, which shows the two severed lots. So we have two severed lots, which are about 2 acres in size. The retained lands are 17.9 hectares, so about 44 acres. I'm here specifically to speak to one condition of approval. The recommendation that I understand staff are going to present to you is one of approval subject to conditions. One of those conditions we think is unnecessary, and that's what I'm here to speak to. Before I get to that, I just want to take you through a little bit of the background here. So these applications, as I said, they were submitted in 2020. Proposal to create 2 lots. This doesn't matter to your analysis from a planning perspective, but just to contextualize things, the applicant is a longtime county resident. He intends to use these 2 properties for his children to build on. Part of this process involved uncontentiously planning staff asking for a hydrogeological study to assess whether this could be serviced and the impact as usual on adjacent properties. After the hydrogeology study was prepared, there's this process that unfolds, as is not entirely unusual, between the hydrogeologist that prepared the study, the county's peer reviewer, and county planning staff. And this resulted in, which unfortunately is becoming a common occurrence, our client, Mr. Brown, spending in excess of $50,000 on this study, the peer review costs associated with it, and application fees. So all of that occurs, and then what occurs in late March, so just a few weeks ago, is an email from planning staff to our client, Mr. Brown, directly, dated March 26th, which says that there is a recommendation of denial coming forward from planning staff. And the following reasons are given for that. 1, sodium content in the well water exceeds the aesthetic limit pursuant to the Ontario Drinking Water Objectives, and that it requires treatment to deplete that. And the second is that there's an alleged water supply issue with the proposed wells because they didn't recover to what was regarded as 95% of the static level, being the level they were at before testing. So this brings us to an important consideration. So to orient ourselves in terms of what peer review is, it's a process by which, and perhaps this is well known to all of you, it's a process by which an expert reviews another expert's opinion to make sure that first expert is actually telling the truth or accurate in their assumptions and conclusions. The process with the County of Prince Edward is that the proponent makes a deposit at the start of the application process, and that deposit is used to pay for that peer review exercise. So the applicant is paying, 1, for the hydrogeologist to conduct the study. They are also paying the county's cost for their own engineer to review that study. And the point of peer review, I put to you, is that staff at the county level do not have the expertise to review a hydrogeologist's opinion and make a conclusion about it. So they hire an engineer to do that for them. There's nothing particularly problematic about that process. But what follows here and what I've got on the screen before you is problematic in my submission. And that is March 26th, we get the recommendation of denial by email from county planning staff. About a week later, we find out that there's a letter, which is in the record before you in your agenda package, that the county's peer reviewer actually says these 2 issues are not particularly problematic. They say the 95% recovery rate might actually be attributable to static level in the well being associated with being basically an imperfect representation of the water level, water table at the start of the testing, and that the elevated sodium might be a consequence of how these wells were installed, which is by blasting. And blasting is the way that you install a dug well in Prince Edward County. So the problem here is my client pays for a peer review exercise with the understanding that he is going to prepare an engineer's opinion to justify the water use, the water quality, water quantity on the site, and that will be reviewed by another expert at his cost. Not what happens here. The hydrogeologist prepares this, there's a recommendation of denial before you actually have the peer reviewer's final opinion in the hands of planning staff. And that is, I say, not consistent with what my client's paying for and what he expects out of this process. So that brings us around to why I'm here tonight. What happens after this peer review comment of April 1 is planning staff changed their tune on this, and they're now recommending approval, but subject to one condition, that's condition number 9 in your agenda package, but I broke it out here to understand what that condition requires, and to me, it means these 6 things. I'm going to take you through each of these, but before I do, I just want to make a comment that when you read that condition in whole, what you'll realize is basically accomplishing this condition requires the Director of Development Services, who is Ms. View at this point, being satisfied with these items being met. And I just conceptually have to make the comment that Ms. View is not a hydrogeologist. Neither are your planning staff, and you're putting them in a position, if you approve this subject to this condition, where they're actually sort of the final buck stops here, approval of whether this thing at a technical level is actually going to make sense on a water quality and water quantity basis. So with that, I'm just going to take you through, aside from sort of the general objection to this condition, what each of these things, what each component of this condition requires and why we think it's not necessary. So the first component of the condition says, do a hydrogeology study addendum that says the aquifer depletion won't occur. This is uncontentiously confirmed in the hydrogeology study. I've excerpted a portion of it here. Your peer reviewer actually agrees that this is the case. So why we need an addendum on this point is beyond my comprehension. The second point here is that a hydrogeology addendum should be prepared showing that sodium in the drinking water will not exceed the Ontario drinking water standards. What I've excerpted here is again from the hydrogeology study. What the hydrogeologist says is that reverse osmosis treatment, a very common form of water treatment in domestic uses, is going to deplete this to the level where it is totally fine in the province of Ontario in view of the objectives, and that likely the cause of this is the road salting activities undertaken by the county. In my view, there is no need for an addendum on this point, and in fact, there was a request for us to address this throughout the process, which unfortunately these 2 letters are not included in your agenda package. But my client went out and got Professional Pumps and Water Treatment and PureTech Environmental to comment on this, and what they said is both of this issue of sodium in the water is entirely treatable in a very usual sense by this reverse osmosis means. The next point here, hydrogen addendum. Again, this addendum is getting rather long at this point, showing that total dissolved solids are not going to exceed the Ontario drinking water objectives. This one is an easy one in my view. Your official plan says you can impose conditions on approvals related to health-related conditions under the Ontario drinking water objectives. Total dissolved solids is not a health-related drinking water objective. It is an aesthetic only objective. In my view, my submission to you is you don't have the authority to require this. It also doesn't pose an impact upon human health. The objectives themselves say what we get from TDS being high is incrustation on basically buildup on faucets. So you don't have jurisdiction, but it's also not a health concern. The next point here is an important one. This hydrogen addendum, instead of that, in this limited regard, my clients can get an engineer's opinion that the well water can be treated without corroding plumbing in the home due to sodium. So one, at a practical level, we've got 2 letters saying plumb with PEX, you're fine. The second issue is this is very firmly a building code issue. I think the moment that we start straying in planning decisions into how should I build my home physically, there should be a red flag going up in terms of this is beyond the scope of what this exercise is supposed to deal with.
Wrap it up, please.
I will. The next 2 points here I'll be very brief on. Nitrate dilution, staff say we should be dealing with pursuant to the D54. The D54 is an MOE guideline associated with large-scale development. Doesn't apply here. And moreover, septic system design is something that is very much part of the building permit process. The next here is another important one. If we're going to design a septic system and show that it can treat the water, planning staff want us to register that on title. That doesn't make sense in my view at a fundamental level, because if the house plans change, we don't have house plans at this point. You're considering a severance. If those don't abide by this septic system design, then we've all gone through the exercise of sort of wasting our time. That is all to say, my ultimate submission, condition number 9 is not required. You've got 2 simple rural lots before you today for two kids of a longtime county resident. He's got $50,000 into this, and he would prefer not to be subjected to sort of further due diligence on points that have already been addressed. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you very much. So we've gone out of order a little bit. I'm going to look to the clerk. Is it okay if we allow committee to ask the applicant questions now, or would you like us to review, hear from Emily and her presentation first?
If committee members have questions for the agent, I would suggest doing it now.
Okay. So Councillor Pennell first, Councillor Branderhorst soon to follow. Thank you, Councillor Pennell.
One of my questions I had, at the time the well testing was done, and they're dug wells,
They are.
was there in fact a flushing of the well prior to doing that?
Yeah, so the terminology in the hydrogeology studies is improvement, which is essentially using them to the point where you're getting the sort of sedimentation associated with the blast out of the well. And yes, that occurred once when the hydrogeologist study was first done, and then at the request of your peer reviewer, it was done, they were pumped twice more, and that resulted in this iterative process back and forth. So the answer in short is yes, they were pumped and flushed.
Okay, can I have a
Yep, you may.
follow-up? The other thing is, whatever the concentration of basically a salt in the well, depending on how much, that can be treated, I agree. But even if a person didn't want to drink it, you have the opportunity to buy water.
Mm-hmm.
I think that basically answers what I would have, because I get a little concerned about these hydrology studies. I find most of them are however you want to interpret them.
If I might, like, at least in my submission, the main focus of your evaluation on the hydrogeology study is to see whether this new development is going to affect existing development next door. Everyone that was involved as an expert in this is very much of the view that that will not occur, no interference. The secondary consideration is this quality side of things, and there's been this back and forth, and just to sort of put it bluntly, my submission would be the issues that are addressed are, to the extent they deviate from the Ontario drinking water objectives, are treatable under normal circumstances by reverse osmosis and water softening.
Am I good to go on? You're comfortable with that answer? Thank you. Councillor Branderhorst and Harrison to follow.
Hi, thank you for everything today. I'm just trying to keep options open in my mind right now, and one would be that would your applicant or / the owner of the property be amendable to if Clause 9 was taken out, specifically a clause put in that if the properties go up for sale to the public. I understand like the desire for his children to have lots, that's very commendable on himself, themselves. But specifically that, basically that there's a fall safe set. Whoever is, say one of these lots have to be sold for whatever is the need, that they are aware that there's high salt and high, so what you are saying is aesthetic to one, that at least.
So a clause on title?
Clause on title, thank you.
Yes,
There you go.
yeah. So one, on the sodium front, it's built in the sense that where there is an exceedance known in well water, there's a requirement to notify the Ontario government, and my understanding, it escapes me at the moment what number, but I assume your planning staff will speak to it. There would be a registration on title that reflects that there is a sodium concentration of X in this well. The other, and my apologies for neglecting to mention this, but like I think an ongoing consideration for you in all of these applications is, does this come back to haunt the county from a liability perspective? I'm not advising you on that point, but what I can say is condition 10 of these conditions requires a consent agreement on title that says we are shedding all liability as the county. Everybody is aware of that. So that's a usual condition that you ask for, and this doesn't, we're not asking for that to be removed. It's condition 9, which is basically the follow-up technical work.
Councillor Harrison. Good. Councillor Harrison.
Yes, these are both, as I read it, both residential only lots.
That's correct. Yes.
Thank you.
Councillor Nyman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So it's funny you bring this up because I had the same concern. So on number 9, a lot of them. So I just, going back to where it says that the owner has to provide something that says that the well water will not harm the plumbing. So I guess I'm just trying to figure out who would give that. How would they tell that it's not going to harm the plumbing? Like, I guess are we asking for things that can't be delivered?
Frankly, no. Like, I think theoretically, yes. Practically, I think what you're doing, like, this I suppose doesn't make your decision easier, but there is a line here between what you can sort of properly control through this exercise and what you can't. And what I would say is the Ontario Building Code is a voluminous document that requires all sorts of things in terms of how we build stuff. And if somebody chooses to build their home in accordance with the OBC and they end up 25 years down the road with corrosion, like I suppose my ultimate submission is that appears to be something that they took upon themselves. So I don't think you can sort of reach your hand onto every component of the build process and say you must do X, Y, and Z at all times.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I don't know that we would ever get that to say, yes, this pipe is there'd be no harm. I mean, new pipes could spring a leak. So the other thing, you mentioned large-scale development, I forgot what you were saying. The one area, it was meant for large-scale development, not an individual lot.
Yeah.
What was that?
So specifically in condition 9, you'll see it's the 4th line down. There's reference to the D55 and D54 guidelines. Those two guidelines, D55 is related to potable water, D54 is related to sewage systems. They are MOE guidelines that guide MOE review of large-scale development. And I say large-scale because the MOE doesn't review small-scale development. What your staff is encouraged to do is look to the D55 for basically direction as to how they might approach things. But strictly speaking, it doesn't apply. And your official plan does not require compliance with the D55. If it did, it would be significant overreach of what the D55 requires. That's my submission.
Okay, can I just ask one more? So I go to the last page here, and I don't know where it was in the report, but it says that you're required to submit a detailed drawing for a septic system to be registered on title. So again, that's under the building code or the ministry, because is there not already requirements set out what you need for a septic system? I know when I was putting them in years ago, it was depending on the size of the house, and you had restrictions how close you could get to wells and property lines and everything else. And I'm pretty sure that's still there, it's still required. Yeah. So I'm just wondering, and because you don't know if you sell the property, you don't know what size the house is going to be there, how can you provide that information?
That's I suppose my point. And so one, I agree with you completely. The process in the typical sense is Ontario's septic designer will design a septic system for a home based on the amount of water usage proposed there. But we don't know that at this point. You're considering whether you're going to approve a 2-acre lot that's zoned residential. So you don't know what's going to be proposed there, whether it's a 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom home or 15 bathrooms. And the point I'm making is, one, it's beyond the scope of this approval, and I don't see clear authority to require the septic design now. But two, registering on a title just seems like a waste of time and money, because we don't know what's going to be built, and now that registration's there, and if somebody builds something slightly different, that design is no good for anybody. So I just don't see the practical point. I don't see what the county gets out of it either.
Okay, thank you. And when the time comes, if nobody else will, I have a motion to bring forward.
Thank you, Councillor Nyman. Councillor Pinnell?
I guess my question is, in regards to the water, in particular, and it's hard for us, we're not into the situation of what's right or what's wrong. But having said that, if it was registered on the deed that there was a higher than normal, or possible higher than normal, would that not answer the question for everybody? And we've used that in the past.
Yeah. So one, and this goes to Councillor Branderhorst's question about the sodium level. So one, there is a registration, which I think your staff will speak to, related to sodium specifically. And two, I suppose, to just contextualize things, like water softening itself adds some sodium to water. So and somewhere between 100 and 200 milligrams per liter in some circumstances. So that's what we're talking about here. The high well is 267 milligrams per liter. The low is lower than that. So we're talking about not an exorbitant amount of sodium. I spoke with our hydrogeologist today, and he indicated that this is entirely within the realm of treatable components. I think your staff are going to speak to a component of the OWO.
On that note, let's move over to staff now and let Emily provide the context that she was looking to provide.
Sure. Thank you for the opportunity to address you.
Thank you. Stay put. And now, back to you, Emily.
Okay, so I'll start by saying that a lot of this presentation does focus on staff conduct and kind of the process that led up to this. Those are obviously not factors in the planning recommendation, but on slide 1 of the proponents' it indicated that staff did not ask for a hydrogeological study until 2023. This is inaccurate, and I'd like to correct that for the record. So the application was submitted in November of 2022. It is considered under the, 2020. It is considered under the previous official plan and provincial policy statement. The file was circulated to Quinney Conservation, who indicated that staff should consider the completion of a hydrogeological study. On September 1st, 2021, staff had some discussion with the owner regarding the parameters for the hydrogeological study and the process for reviewing it. This went on throughout 2022. Briefly, there is some discussion now as to why are we requiring that water meet a certain standard, and why don't we just register on title and acknowledgement that it may not. These are some of the policies that do compel us to look at that. Under the 2020 official plan, the property is designated as rural lands. The provincial policy statement states that development shall be promoted in this designation where it can be sustained by rural service levels. The PPS provides more guidance on what would constitute an appropriate form of servicing, and says that planning for water and wastewater services shall ensure that systems can be sustained by the services upon which they rely, prepare for the impacts of a changing climate, be feasible and financially viable over the project life cycle, and protect human health and safety. In 2023, a hydrogeological study was provided. The study was subject to a peer review, which indicated that water quantity may be an issue given the low recovery rates exhibited by the wells. An addendum study was provided in 2024, which used a theoretical calculation to indicate that quantity should not be an issue, but out of an abundance of caution, recommended the use of engineered storage. The addendum study was subject to a peer review who acknowledged that engineered storage may be required. In March of 2024, I dealt with the applicant and requested that a study be provided to demonstrate that sodium can be treated through reverse osmosis. I think it's important to note that this recommendation for consulting with a water treatment specialist did not come out of nowhere. It was in the consultant's own report, and our peer reviewer echoed that. The sodium does exceed the D55 limit, and at the point at which it's present is considered not reasonably treatable by the ministry. Further into the background, the file was scheduled for a STAT meeting in 2025. And as was indicated in the previous presentation, I did reach out to the owner and indicate that we would not be supportive of the severances based on the existing information that I had. After this, I did speak to our peer reviewer as I was drafting the staff report, and perhaps there was some misunderstanding on my part prior to that, or just new information being brought up, but the peer reviewer then did provide me with a bit more info stating that perhaps it is feasible to service these wells. The low recovery in the wells is potentially attributed to these being dug wells, which don't behave the same way as drilled wells. And the peer reviewer also indicated that the exceedances, such as sodium, may naturally diminish with time as those wells further develop. So finally, the staff recommendation. We recommend approval subject to further hydrogeological testing. There are kind of 6 components in the condition, but some of those are options, so it's not as though there's 6 things that need to be addressed. What we're asking for is either that the proponent shows that they meet the minimum standards per the D55, which although it is potentially was devised for larger scale development, the good thing about a guideline is it's not a policy. You know, we have discretion to apply elsewhere where we feel that it's appropriate. And to me, the process through which a new residential lot is created, be it a subdivision application or a severance, shouldn't necessarily be relevant. We're still looking for residential lots to, you know, produce sustainable servicing. So yeah, we recommend that either the owners show that they're going to meet the minimum provincial standards, or alternatively, that they have a water quality specialist say that reverse osmosis is feasible here given the chemistry of the water and given the fact that the sodium level is considered to be not reasonably treatable by the ministry. And that is it. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Before we do go to questions, let's get this on the floor. Can I get a mover? Thank you, Councillor Branderhorst, and a seconder, Councillor Grosso. And we will start, what's that? Yes, Councillor Branderhorst, go for it. Sorry.
Thanks, Chair.
You
Thanks,
only
Councillor
have to
Nyman, for that.
list the conditions. You don't have to read them out.
This is Branderhorst Grosso motion that the Planning and Development Committee receive report DS-21-2025 regarding consent and rezoning file number B88-20, B89-20, and Z76-20. And number 2, that the Planning and Development Committee approve the consent file number B88-20, proposed severed Lot A for the lands described as Part Lot 5, Concession 3, south side of East Lake, Athol, Part 47R7019, Ward 5, Athol, subject to the following conditions, 1 through 11, and 3, that the Planning Development Committee approve consent file number B89-20, proposed severed Lot B for the lands described at Part Lot 5, Concession 3, south side of East Lake, Athol, Part 447R7019, Ward 5, Athol, subject to the following conditions 1 through 11. And that the Planning and Development Committee approve zoning bylaw amendment file number Z76-20 for the lands described at Part Lot 5, Concession 3, south side of East Lake, Athol, Part 447R7019, Ward 5, Athol.
Deep breath. Okay. So Councillor Nyman, then Councillor Pennell. Go for it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. So just a couple things. So you mentioned that the, I forget what it is here, the D55 and the D54 are guidelines, which, and that's what it's saying here, that so that you're able to apply them to other things. But in legislation, guideline is exactly that. It's a guideline. It's a suggestion. It doesn't mean that it is required. If it was required, there would be legislation that says you must do this. But if being just a guideline, it's a suggestion to do this or do that. So, you know, it kind of works for both parties when it's a guideline. And then the other thing is reverse osmosis will take the water out or the salt out, but I don't think that we, and not just this file, but this has come on other files too, and I don't think the onus is on the owner of that property to suggest or tell the buyer of a property, if they're gonna sell it, what kind of water treatment they need to put on their well. I think that as an owner of the property, that would be up to the owner to do that, who's gonna build the house. So I just think that we're asking for a lot from the applicants when they come like this.
Councillor Pennell.
If these lots were approved as they are, and it was registered against title, that there could be a possibility of maybe having to have something auxiliary to help with additional water, and also listing that there was a high salt content, and also that registered through the Department of Health, I would see no problem in approving this. And I use a prime example, 2 lots rated additional to me. There was possibility of running out of water. That was going to be listed against title. Also, it was be listed against title. Some of them had high salt level, which for health-wise, I think no matter what, it would have to be. And to me, if that was done, we're looking for more houses, and I think to ask for a whole bunch of stuff at this point, that the county would still be covered. And I guarantee you, if somebody gets a whole lot of salt, they're gonna know in a lot less than a year when they get there, because I come through it.
Thank you, Councillor Pennell. Are there any other comments or thank you, Councillor Harrison.
Yes, I'd just like to comment on that a bit, that I think that condition should be taken out of this application, because half of the houses in the county are on rural land are in this same situation. And some of them have been there 100 years or more, and I think it's something that we're getting into that we shouldn't really be involved in, because if that's in there and we do something wrong, then we are getting ourselves in a liability situation. And I would say it's just a buyer beware situation.
Any further questions or comments? So I believe that motion is coming. And there was a hand up? No? Okay. So, no. So that motion, Councillor Nyman's planning to bring something similar forward. I'm just, sorry, Emily, for my clarity. Is it clause 9 that includes the registration on title? Or it is not? There is not that. Okay.
Through the chair, it's clause 10
Thank
that registers that.
Thanks very much. Are there further comments before we go to Councillor Nyman? Okay. Councillor Nyman, take it away.
Okay, thank you. So, I guess clause 10 already says it has to be registered on title for the salt. Is that correct?
Through the chair, no, it's not. That would be implicit in satisfying the other condition for further hydrogeological study. So if the sodium remains elevated, then a recommendation from our peer reviewer would be for that to be registered on title, and that would be involved in satisfying that hydrogeological condition.
So I don't know how I could do this. I guess what I want to do is stroke number 9 the entirety of number 9, omit it, but replace it with that it's on registered on title. There may be high levels of sodium.
Would you like to comment on that? Or?
Through the chair, I don't agree with removing the hydrogeological condition, but if that's the will of council, then I would recommend that the language be something more like sodium is present at a level that's not considered to be reasonably treatable by the ministry, we recommend that a water quality specialist be contacted to discuss treatment methods or something to that effect. And perhaps mentioning the quantity as well.
So, just that wording alone is adding more to the person who's severing the, and they're gonna do that if they're gonna build a house themselves. They're going to get that salt, or do the salt, they're gonna figure out what needs to be. I guess what I'm trying to get is that this right here gets removed, and then what we're asking for, or what we'd like to see, is that there is some kind of recognition that there is salt in the water, because we've already seen that there is. So we just want a recognition that there is salt in the water, and that if it's registered on title, so that if somebody buys it, they know that it's there.
Yeah, so through the chair, I mean, I think the condition apprises future owners of what may be involved, and that recommendation to consult a water treatment specialist came from both our peer reviewer and the owner's hydrogeologist consultant. I guess if you wanted to pare it down, we could add to the end of condition 10 something to the effect of sodium may be present. I still think it should be sodium may be present at a level that may be difficult to treat, and engineered storage may also be required to provide an adequate quantity. We recommend that the owner speak to a water quality specialist.
So, do you have any other alternatives in mind, or no, just the recommendation as it stands? And if council decides to do otherwise, we will take that under advisement. Is that what I'm hearing from you?
Through the chair, yes. I think the condition for the study can be removed. No changes to the clause can be made, or council can add any kind of language to the end of clause 10 that they see appropriate.
Okay, so if as you do go forward to form this, just my turnaround one, I would be very cautious and make sure that human health and potable water on site is in the language properly.
And it is, if you register it on title, that there is sodium in the water. You're identifying to any prospective owner, or the person that owns it now, that there is salt in the water, and that you need to be aware that you take your chance on the salt level that's there, or you test it and you put in the appropriate water treatment at that time.
I was just suggesting with your wording.
What's that?
I was just suggesting with your wording of the motion.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. By saying that there's sodium present in the water, and it could be at levels that, I don't know if it's unknown, or that could exceed what the ministry has guidelines or what they've said, that is giving you, putting that safety element in there. So I guess I'd like to remove that and then just put that wording, I guess, in number 10. And I guess the other thing that was mentioned was the storage. So is that a requirement or no?
So, Manager Michaud.
Yes, while Emily's writing a draft condition, I believe, we have encountered higher salt levels on other applications, and I believe we put in a condition that said you had to contact a health unit and that you put a clause on title. The unfortunate fact is no lawyers search title anymore. It's title insurance, right? So you can put anything you want on title. It's probably not going to be found. It's just the way life is today. For us in the planning section, the PPS talks about shall, you shall ensure that the lot can be serviceable for rural standards. So that's potable water and a quantity of water. You know, we've heard words that we could truck water to it. Well, we're in a climate emergency now, so my understanding is that council still has us in a climate emergency. So if we keep trucking water out, then I guess how many more wells are going to be run dry? Then how does that affect our decisions in regards to our water plants? Do we have to increase the size in order to capture a certain amount of water that's going to be trucked out to the rural area to support the rural area? But then the PPS tells us you shall provide your own water in your own septic. Yeah, in talking about D55 and D54, they were used prior to even I started my career. So, you know, that's 30 years ago. So those are the standards that have been with us. We as an industry, we've been asking the ministry incessantly to change the guidelines so that we have greater clarity. But for whatever reason, they have not done that. So D55, D54 are the only tools that we have available to us.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on. Councillor Pennell.
Yeah, getting back to what Councillor Nyman was proposing. If it's registered against title, that it comes that sodium might be at a higher level, which might affect your health. And also, if it's also registered against title that the amount of water is questionable, then it's buyer beware. And not only that, if it's registered against title, nobody can build a house today and live in it for a month and then sell it. It's got to be registered. So the next buyer would have that as well. And as far as I'm concerned, if it's done that way, I believe it clears the county of any responsibility. It makes the owner aware of what they're purchasing, and registered against title, it's there forever. So I would support anything that Councillor Nyman might come up with.
Back to you, Councillor Nyman. Are you? Oh, my apologies, Councillor Harrison. Is this regarding Councillor Nyman's proposed motion or amendment? Sure. Let's get the amendment on the floor then, maybe. See if there's a seconder. Oh, well, there you go. Well, then.
The clerk may have some kind of
I suspect that she does.
Yes, through the chair, I can read it out loud or display it. If you want it displayed, just give me a couple minutes and maybe Harrison can speak while we do that.
Do you want to read it aloud?
Or just I can read it out loud.
If you just, yeah.
So that condition number 9 relating to an addendum to the hydrogeological study on consent B88-20 and B89-20 be removed entirely, and that condition number 10 be amended to include the following clause. Sodium is present in the water at a concentration that is considered to not be reasonably treatable, and engineered storage may be required to provide an adequate supply. We recommend that a water quality specialist and or hydrogeologist be consulted.
Okay. Councillor Roberts. On mic?
Madam Chair, I just wanted to ask staff a question
Yes.
for just clarification. I'm reading the Ministry of Environment and on describing the use of D55 in private wells. And it says this guideline describes the position of the ministry regarding the assessment of water supplies for developments and individual private wells. The guideline is based on ministry experience with development utilizing individual wells and reflects the need to ensure that future owners of lots or homes have a high probability of being able to obtain adequate quantities of potable water for domestic consumption over the short and long term. It's the next sentence that I'm interested in. In addition to that, this guideline is presented for use with the understanding that the use of individual private wells has been justified by the municipality or the local planning authority. In other words, the obligation to apply D55 rests with the municipality. That's what you're suggesting.
For you, Madam Chair, correct.
Thank you. Councillor Harrison.
Okay, this is more of a comment than anything, that if that amendment goes in there, that it should be specific to that well, because that's a registered well, and sometimes you can move 100 feet or 50 feet one way or the other, and you get a totally different water supply than you would. It should be registered only against that well, not against that lot.
Any further comments or questions regarding the amendment? Okay, I have one. I'm not supporting the amendment, but I understand why you're bringing it forward. So just to let you know, it's on the floor. It's duly moved. No more questions. All in favor?
I can have a recorded vote on that,
Sure.
can I not?
So Councillor Nyman,
In favor.
Councillor Prinzen,
In favor.
Councillor Roberts,
Opposed.
Councillor St. Jean,
Opposed.
Councillor Harrison,
In favor.
Councillor Grosso,
In favor?
Councillor Branderhorst,
In favor.
Councillor Engelsdorfer,
Opposed.
Councillor Hirsch,
Opposed.
Councillor McNaughton,
Opposed.
Councillor Brainy,
In favor.
Councillor Pennell,
In favor.
and Mayor Ferguson.
Opposed.
That carries 7-6.
And so now the main motion is amended. Any further comments or questions? Okay, it's on the floor, so all in favor? And that carries. Thank you very much, Emily. Thank you for the context that you provided. So now we are moving on to item 7.3, I believe. There we go. And that is the temporary use bylaw and interim servicing agreement for PEC Community Partners. So does our planner wish to speak to the notice requirements, application, proposals, summarize correspondence, if any, et cetera? Hi, welcome.
Thank you for having me, Madam Chair. I know I'm a new face. My name is Pasco. I'm an engineer with the Development Services Department.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Our lead planner, Stephen Willis, is with us virtually.
Thank you. And you don't wish to add anything regarding the notice requirements, correspondence, et cetera? You're good right now? Okay. So then, does the applicant or agent wish to speak to this? You have 5 minutes to speak in total. So, and this is Christopher Marchese?
Correct, yes.
And Asaf Weiss? Welcome to both. You've got 5 minutes total between the two of you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, fellow councillors. My name is Chris Marchese here on behalf of PEC Community Partners, Inc. It's been some time since we've appeared before you, and although we've been quiet, we've definitely been busy. And I'd just like to briefly share some key updates that the base has undertaken over the last little while. Over the past year, we've invested approximately $15 million in critical infrastructure, replacing aging water and wastewater systems that once served the base. This investment not only supports our long-standing tenants, but also lays the groundwork for new business opportunities. We're in regular discussions with both established local operators and emerging entrepreneurs, many of whom see the base as a new home for their ventures. Last year, we celebrated the opening of the commissary, which welcomed 5 local food entrepreneurs. We had a great concert series and plenty of other unique activations throughout the site. This summer promises even more. Exciting concerts, public event, and vibrant food and beverage activations are planned to bring the community together, providing economic prosperity. We also have major announcements coming soon, including partnerships to expand childcare programming and support skilled trades training. Most importantly, we remain committed to our promise, delivering purpose-built rental building, including affordable units, and continuing design work on the first residential village. All of these applications have been submitted, deemed complete, and are currently under review by county staff. Over 18 months ago, Council passed a motion requesting a municipally initiated MZO from the province. Due to the recent election and ministerial changes, this request remains in their hands. Every indication we have heard is that the province is excited and a supporter of this project, but this is the reason why we're here asking for an extension of the temporary bylaw in front of you today. The extension of this bylaw is the extension of the status quo that has existed for the past 3 years. Nothing is changing, and we respectfully ask for your continued support in advancing this important step, which is key to unlocking the housing and economic opportunities we are building together for the future. At this point, I'll pass it to my colleague Asaf before we are able to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, and good evening, members of council. My name is Asaf Weiss. I'm the president of Base 31, and I wanted to come here to tell you tonight about how your support for this zoning and what it's made possible over the last 3 years, and why it's so important for us that it be extended. We currently employ about 40 people year-round. In a month from now, we'll have a team of about 100 people that do everything from beginning to end to make the Base 31 season happen. Those are jobs ranging from construction and carpentry to hospitality and accounting. Our team itself is a reflection of the county. We have newcomers, we have folks from multi-generational Loyalist families, we have members of First Nations. And at times we've had multiple family members work for us, and so it's created a really tight-knit environment that makes these things possible. It is all of these people that bring this site to life and make Base 31 tick in all of the ways that are permitted by the zoning bylaw. We're also strongly committed to local procurement, and this year alone, we're going to be purchasing everything from food and signage to excavation and electrical services from over 110 county businesses and organizations, the agreements for which all are reliant upon the continuation of this zoning bylaw. And some of them are here with us today. And of course, we're home to about 50 tenants who are local small businesses, many of whom have come onto the site precisely because of the public nature of the site. As you may have seen earlier today, we just released our season lineup for the drill hall. And that's part of a programming series that last year brought about 75,000 people to the site. This year, we think we're going to exceed well over 100,000. What we've found is that 2 out of every 3 ticket buyers to the site also extend their trip in the county. They shop on Main Street, they go to local restaurants, they stay overnight in accommodations throughout the county. And to make all of that travel safe and more accessible, for the second year in a row, we are contributing funding to a partnership with Quinte Transit to expand public bus schedules and routes. Families are really important to us, and so we have been working hard to create a number of programs, including summer camps, theater camps, and other things that make family and child programming available. This year, that will become available to up to 150 families and households. So all of this, as I mentioned, is really contingent on the permitted uses that you supported us with 3 years ago, and that we ask for your continued support on today.
Perfect timing.
There we go.
Thank you very much. So let's get this on the floor, and then we can lob some questions. Can I get a mover and a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Roberts and Councillor St. Jean.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This regards the extension of the temporary use bylaw and interim servicing agreement, PEC Community Partners. The Council received Report DS 19-2025 of the Development Services Department dated April 16, 2025 regarding temporary use zoning bylaw 99-2022, file number Z11-22, an interim servicing agreement update for Base 31. The Council approve a one-year extension to temporary use bylaw 99-2022. Third, that Council approve a deferral of the water and wastewater connection charges mandated by bylaw 4019-2017 until such time as water and wastewater allocation is deemed permanent in accordance with the interim servicing agreement. Four, that the interim servicing agreement be amended to clarify that applicable water and wastewater connection charges and/or any similar charges, including development charges, shall be assessed in accordance with the relevant bylaws in force at the time of the water and wastewater allocation is deemed permanent, that a temporary use zoning bylaw for lands described as 343 County Road 22 and Kingsley Road, Loch Sloy, Camp Picton, amending the County Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw number 1816-2006, as listed on the agenda for a time period ending May 18, 2026, be approved.
Thank you. So questions from committee? And those could be for the applicant, but also I think we are going to have a few questions for staff. Thank you, Councillor Nyman.
Thank you. I do have one question. So you mentioned that you got 40 people working there now, and are they full-time jobs?
Yeah, we have approximately 40, and those are year-round roles. And then in addition to that, we staff up for the busy season. So we add another about 55 roles.
Okay, so the 100 people that you had mentioned earlier would be included, or those 40, and then plus the 55, that would be part-time, I guess.
That's right.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Engelsdorfer.
Thanks. I think this will be a question for staff. The report mentioned connection charges are like $750K, somewhere in that range that we haven't collected. We're going down the path of a DC bylaw. So when that time comes, will we be collecting connection charges, or will it switch over to DCs? How will that work?
Through you, Madam Chair. So the way that the report's been worded is that the charges that would be applicable at that time, the allocation is made permanent, those would be the applicable connection charges. So if there's changes made between now and then, at that time, whatever is applicable would be what would be charged.
Is that clear?
No. So the 750, will it be a connection charge, or will DCs come into play if we get rid of connection charges?
DCs would be separate from connection charges as we understand them currently, but if that's added in the future, whatever is applicable per the relevant bylaws would be charged at that time.
So just for clarification, are you saying that it might not be as it's written, it might be as we will be seeing each connection rolled into the DC, so it will probably be a different number if it is after the DC bylaw has been, so you're comfortable with that? Yeah.
That through you, Madam Chair, that's accurate and as intended. The number that you're seeing in the report now is to illustrate what would be applicable under the current bylaw.
Right now. That is one of the questions that I think Councillor Dorothy Bothwell brought forward. Do you want to continue on with her other question, which related to, are there any other temporary bylaws for private entities similar to this? Or I just did. Got you back.
Through you, Madam Chair. There may be one other temporary use bylaw in play at this point in the county, but it's not at this level by any means. This is something that was granted to them by council for a period of 3 years to allow for some animation and goings on at this particular site. Everything that's gone on has gone through what's called a letter of undertaking, which is effectively a small site plan application where we internally review what they want to do. So if they want to upgrade a building, we make sure that it's compliant to building code, fire code, emergency services are there, or how to do emergency services, whether there's any planning ramifications in terms of parking and drainage and that sort of thing. So it gets reviewed. They sign a letter of undertaking with us so that they operate the site as per that LOU.
Thank you for that context. Councillor Pennell?
Thank you. When it comes to an extension, we've already had it for 3 years, and I get a little alarmed when we keep extending. Do we come back in a year and extend it for another 5? Maybe it's going to take 20 years. I would like to, before we vote on this, to get a little more information to council and the planning board, which is all in the same, because I start worrying a little bit to keep extend. We've got to start planning for the future, but we got to know what we're planning for, and piecemeal doesn't do it.
Thank you. Would you like to comment on that, Mike?
Sure. Through you, Madam Chair. As Mr. Marchese indicated earlier, if there was not a provincial election, the MZO would have come down.
Presumably.
We were pretty sure that we were going to get, or it would have been signed or dealt with in one way or another. Because of the election, it didn't happen. So now we were hoping that the same minister would have been available in the portfolio, but that minister has changed. So now that minister has to get up to speed on what the MZO is all about. So unfortunately, it's taken much longer than ever anticipated. It would have been, in hindsight, quicker to go through a normal zoning amendment. But this was the path that we ended up down to try and get some affordable housing, because that's a component of the project. It didn't happen. We're hopeful that within the year, within a few months actually, that the MZO will be dealt with in one way, shape, or form or another.
Thank you. Councillor Roberts.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't so much have a question as just saying something. I don't think there are other entities like Base 31 today, yesterday, and maybe not in the future. So you are a unique entity, Base 31. So I'm going to say thank you. I'm just going to say plain out thank you for doing what you do. 15 million in new needed infrastructure investment, 40 full-time, perhaps 50 or 60 part-time jobs, local procurement that supports 100 plus businesses in the county, 75 to 100,000 new visitors that visit PEC and stay PEC are grateful for, I'm sure, helping with our public transit challenges, and not to mention what Scott had to say, Scott Wentworth, about Come Alive Outside, which is a great initiative that Scott involved me with many, many, many years ago. And the sense of place of community. I mean, that's fantastic. So really, thank you. And I would like to think that the county is a good partner for Base 31 and not a fair weather partner. So I'm fully in support of this, thank you. And I just would find it unconscionable that somehow we would hold either Shire Hall or Base 31 responsible for Queen's Park being gummed up and not getting to this file in a prompt and timely manner because of an election that we can all explore the merits of. But just thank you. You've done a great job.
Thank you, Mayor Ferguson. I almost demoted you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just want to go back to the employment numbers. 40 expanding to 100, give or take.
That's right.
That's people that are staffed at by Base 31. What about increases? What about employment to the businesses that operate up there? Do you have any idea how those numbers are affected particularly during the summer?
It's a good question. Of the 50 businesses, a portion of them are publicly facing, and they would certainly staff up for the visitor season and in anticipation of that increased foot traffic. So I can't give you an exact estimate because we haven't checked with those businesses, but I would assume it's some multiple of 50.
So, but that would be like the commissary that might employ extra people and that sort of thing. Okay.
Absolutely, yeah.
All right, thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Harrison.
Yes, when this comes to a vote, I'd like a recorded vote.
Sure. Any further comments or questions? Okay, so the item is on the floor without any further comments or questions. All in favor? Oh, sorry, recorded vote. Right.
Thank you. Through the chair, Councillor Harrison,
In favor.
Councillor Pennell,
In favor.
Councillor Branderhorst,
In favor.
Councillor Engelsdorfer,
In favor.
Councillor Hirsch,
In favor?
Councillor McNaughton,
In favor?
Councillor Brainy,
In favor.
Councillor Grosso,
In favor.
Councillor Nyman,
In favor.
Councillor Prinzen,
In favor.
Councillor Roberts,
Let's see. In favor?
Councillor St. Jean,
In favor.
Mayor Ferguson,
In favor.
and that carries.
Sure does. Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair and fellow council members. Much appreciated tonight.
Thank you for joining us tonight. Councillor Pennell, yes, you have a question.
Yeah, before we end the meeting, we talked about council and had people in that were severing houses off of farms. And I believe there was a motion of council at that time with something that we would have to look at in the future. And it was suggested it go back to planning. But I think I would like to see it get started, no matter if it requires a report or whatever.
Well, I believe that's been referred to staff, and they will be working.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, that was exactly what it was. Could you very briefly mention if there's an understood timeline?
Sure, through you, Madam Chair. We have started a review of local municipalities as well as like municipalities. We have a unique soil structure here, not dissimilar to Grey County, Bruce County, and the Niagara region. So we'll be looking at their municipalities as well to see what they've done in the past or continue to do.
Do you have a trajectory for what month it will return?
Probably not until the fall.
Okay.
You know, the summer season's coming, so probably best to wait till the fall.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Pennell. Normally, I guess we would do that at confirmation of the agenda. I don't know. It's unusual, but let's live on the edge. So adjournment, I'm going to look to Councillor Branderhorst and Councillor Prinzen to take care of this.
This is a Branderhorst Prinzen motion. No, not this time.
Recorded.
Not this time. Only if somebody else makes it. That this meeting now adjourn at 8:03 p.m.
Okay, all in favor?